So you're all learning how to warm up to look at the API for OneList. So OneList API, let's close these things down, right? So these formats for getting API docs are going to be fairly standard. These are actually nicely formatted API docs. Every API you look at is going to have varying levels of quality. Some are going to be really easy to read, and some are going to be atrocious. This falls kind of towards the better end of the scale. And it follows a fairly standard format in a pretty common pattern. So luckily for us, this documentation is actually pretty decent. So OneList is an API for creating and managing a to-do list. Right? So we're going to be building a to-do list app. So let's read about authentication. It says it uses token authentication. Your token can be any text you wish. As long as you use the same token between requests, you'll have access to the same list items. So it means that every time we access something in this API, we have to have our own access token that we can make up ourselves. So if we give it an access token 123, we get back a list called 123. If we use the token Cohort XI, we get the list for Cohort XI. That's what that's saying. So we should probably see in every API request something that mentions access token. For APIs that require this, we'll have to provide it every time. Kind of like that weather API where we have to tack on that token. Same idea. So let's take a look at what the API can do. So we can list items, it looks like. We can create items for a collection of items. For a singular item, we can retrieve an item, we can update an item, and we can remove an item. Okay, that sounds like pretty expected behavior from a to-do list, right? Let's see what it looks like when we create a new item to see what kinds of things we can give it and what kind of things we get back. Usually this will tell us what kind of activities our to-do list can have. So it says if we post to items access token, we will create a new item. It takes a JSON object containing the task text. So an example would be posting to this URL with an access token of illustrious voyage. So the parameters are in the URI. So in the URL itself here, we take the access token. And in the request, it should look like this. So the body of the request has to be a JSON object with item text and the text for the task we're going to add to our to-do list. So this is what that request is going to look like. If we look at what a list looks like, right, access token, the response is going to look something like this. An array of objects, which gives us an ID, a text, and a Boolean if it's true or not. Right? Hey, look, pretty appropriate for today, right? We have not yet mastered React. You all have learned HTML and CSS. Right? So these are the kinds of things that our list can do. What all features did you all put in your, right? So read and understand the user interface. Did anybody play with Postman?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Did you create some tasks and lists and things? No. Okay. Did you all plan out a user interface? Okay, that's what's up there on the board. So you've got a header and an add button, and you've got like a list of items that looks like, with some checkboxes to say if it's complete or not. And then down at the bottom, what's that say? Completed.
Oh. Like if all items are completed, we want to say abstract or text.
Okay, completed. Okay, so if it's completed, it'll have a line through the text, and a button for editing, and a button for deleting, and a footer. Cool.
We wanted to do a drop down.
For
it says edit, and then you click it, and then you either click update or delete.
Okay, well, we'll see about that. Right, just with how much time we're going to spend on the user interface, how much time we're going to spend on other bits. But that seems like a pretty good user interface for a to-do list. Did y'all identify components? So let's see, you've got a header component and a footer component.
Footer can go in the LI component or UL component.
Yeah. So our components are never going to be DOM. We're never going to talk about components as LIs or ULs. Components are abstract things. Components are words humans would use. Components are the words you would use to describe this to your parents. Right? You're not going to be like, hey, the LI component. Be like, what are you talking about? So your components are going to be things like a to-do item, right? Or a list of to-dos. Your components are always going to have human names to them. So I see a header and I see a footer, but I don't see an LI component. I see a list component, yep. And a list component might be made up of items. Yeah. Yeah, items or list items. Yeah, so I see a header and a footer and a list is composed of items or to-dos or whatever you want to call them. Yeah. So that when you think about them in those abstract terms, right, it frees you from any particular implementation of how you're going to use HTML to do it. Right? Maybe it'll be a UL and an LI. Maybe it's a bunch of divs. Maybe it's a definition list. We all know about definition lists. There's a whole section of HTML that deals with definition lists. Maybe they're DDs and DLs and DTs, right? So just because it looks like a list doesn't necessarily mean we're going to talk about a component as an LI. So yeah, there might be a list component, but it might be implemented as something else. Cool. Did we talk about what components will need state and what that state's going to look like? No. So in this app, where do you think the state might be held?
In the list items. In the list items.
Yeah. So what's the state of our app going to be? What are we tracking?
The completion of tasks.
Yeah, but more generally.
Is it tasks?
To-dos. The tasks. Yeah. Our state is going to be a collection of tasks, right? So at least our list component might be the place where that list of to-dos is going to be. Usually your state is going to end up being in the thing. It's going to end up in one of two places. It's either going to end up in the app, because everything below it's going to need it, or it's going to end up in the component that represents what your application is. Right? It's going to be in your list because this is a to-do list. Right? Our Minesweeper game, the app, the state might end up in the board because that's what our Minesweeper game is. It's a board of cells. Cool.
So if we were thinking of doing the add items in the header. So would that have to be state, or would that just be a function that changes the state in our list?
So if you're going to have a button in your header, then that probably implies that your state is going to have to be higher than that. So if your app contains your header, your list, and your footer, that means that your state is probably going to be up in your app, and it's going to share down.
So then the event of the click on the button would pass up into the app, and then the props would flow down into the list.
Yep, exactly. Right, because if you look at your design, your header, your list, and your footer are kind of all siblings. So they're probably going to be constructed as siblings. Therefore, the state has to be above, right? Because we said state and props flow down. So if that's true, and you're going to put that add button up in your header, state has to be above that, up in the app. So likely the app is going to where we're going to put our state. So did we talk about what actions are going to happen in your app? Add item.
Add a delete.
Delete.
Edit item.
And an edit.
Completed.
And a complete. Okay, cool. Did anybody start building out the initial state of the HTML and CSS?
We thought we were supposed to wait for this.
Oh, okay.
We were going to start, but then we figured we needed something that all of us could work on.
Cool. Anyone want to volunteer to start? Cool. So why don't you share your screen with me? Oh, let me get the thing, that app going, Reflector. So go ahead. No, do not show the screen again.
I was wondering how you were making your computer visible screen.
Yes.
I found that, but it's like $15.
Yeah. For me.
Nice.
Cool. All right, awesome. Let's do this screen thing. new version of OS 10 Mojave's got this whole like desktop icon organizing thing where it like sort of automatically organize your desktop into like pop-up folders.
Did you download it?
I have downloaded it, but I haven't installed it yet. My girlfriend's computer is the same way, it's just full of icons. And then she's got a very busy background. It's like, how do you even see the icons? Like, I have like 10 icons on my desktop, it's freaking me out. I'm also the same person who like never opens more than like 6 tabs in a browser or like 3 files in my editor. People who have like their tabs, like these little slivers. Oh, how do you? And they're like, oh, let me go to Amazon. It's the 26th tab right here. It's these 4 pixels. That's where Amazon is. How do you know?
I've got 3 icons in my desktop.
Yeah.
It gets to a point where you kind of just randomly click on
Yeah.
in the general area.
Yeah. I'll get it. Let's bump your font size up a little bit so we can see. Cool. All right, so let's delete everything that's inside that div and start with a clean implementation. So yeah, grab all of that to the header. Perfect. So as we normally do, let's lay out the big parts. Let's lay out the big parts of the app. All right, so you have a header and a thing and a footer. Let's put a header and a footer inside of there.
It self-closed the div.
Yeah,
Should I
reopen it and just put a header inside of there. Let's put a header tag inside of there.
Could you put a header tag inside the self-closing div?
No.
No?
Yeah, because it's self-closing. Yeah, just put in my header. And let's make a footer and put my footer in it. That way it won't auto-close. There's a way we can turn that off. Footer, my footer. Cool. We should get
What's the first time? You seen it? It's weird.
yeah, it's not updated.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah. In the right just a second, just make sure we're in the right place. Just control for a second. PWB. Always
Dash cohort dash XI. Dash
So, yeah. So here's a hot tip. Delete all this. Delete. Yep. Do it ls. Yeah, even better. No. Delete. Oh, my goodness. That's more than just like major. Yeah. Okay. So you went one directory up to one. So CD user. Perfect. Just be like normal solution of the background. Tab. I'm going to ask you to reconnect with a second once you get caught up.
We're in business.
Okay.
Verify you again.
Yes. Okay. Cool. All right. So we've got our header and we've got our footer. Cool. Let's go through and just build up the rest of a static implementation of what our interface is going to look like, and then we'll do some CSS.
Does Evan not work in?
It will if you install the Emmet plugin.
Well, so normally,
Like we've got Emmet and it doesn't work. You can't do like the li times 12 or whatever.
It's like li times something, and I think it's like Control E to like finish the Emmet. It's,
Oh,
there's
okay,
a-
because it automatically works in like an HTML file, but not with JSX.
Yeah, so it won't always know that JSX is HTML and it'll have the thing active.
okay.
Yeah, so let's put in a couple of to-dos. Yeah, I would say maybe put in like 3 of them. Yeah. Okay. I'm not sure we need to wrap it in a div because the UL might be enough. So let's drop the div wrapper around that. We'll see. Cool. Your header has a button in it. So let's add a button to the header. After my header, in your layout, it's on the right-hand side. So I would have it say my header and then the button afterwards. So inside of the header, but after the text.
Right here. Yep.
Yes.
I'll run the hold into that in the header. Are you comfortable moving it? Like, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah. Let's just generally lay it out the way you all had it.
Yeah, depending on how difficult what the buttons are.
Just a plus sign. So just put a plus. There we go. Yeah. So there's our app, right? Because you had an empty string, and then when it relayed it out, it tried to preserve that blank space. So JSX is going to try and retain the blank spaces that are in the thing, so you can just get rid of it. It's a combination of Prettier and JSX trying to honor like the one little space you put after the closing button tag, but before the header.
Wow, that was so nice.
Yeah, so nice of it. So let's see what else. In your list items, you have an edit and a delete. So after each list item, after your to-do one, let's put in, what do we want to do, buttons or links? What do we think?
I think buttons that actually
Yeah.
do the
Let's do buttons.
do the post to get.
You want to
Yeah.
edit and delete button on both?
Yes, let's do an edit and a delete button on both. Yeah. So see that space you put in there? That's what JSX is going to try and preserve when you hit save here in a second. So generally we don't add extra space between our tags. So just drop that space between the button close and button open. You got some, yeah, right there. Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing that JSX, like when it wraps, is like, I gotta preserve that space. Andrew literally typed a space here, I will preserve it for him. But it's not important, because if we're gonna put space in there, we're gonna do it with margins and padding, not with blank space. Cool. All right, it's kind of looking like a to-do list, right?
Yeah, that's good.
Yep. Let's turn off the UL list item styles. Let's in our index CSS. Let's do UL list style none. List style none. Yeah, semicolon. There we go. Yeah, Prettier's going to get that for us. Cool. All right. Cool. Let's add some like margin to our header. I don't know. I'll try like 2 rems. Oops. Cool. Let's also put 2 rems on the footer. So we can do this two ways. We can type it again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so go ahead and do it this way. That's the way you started. So put 2 rem margin, 2 rems. Or we could put comma footer after header if we're going to format it the same way. So either way is fine. It just depends if we're going to keep formatting the header differently than the footer. Let's see.
What about the checkboxes?
Do we have, oh yeah, we'll put the checkboxes. What are the checkboxes or the completion?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's finish playing with the header for a minute.
Okay, should I put the...
So
boxes?
yes, there's an input style, input type checkbox. Just like we have an input by default as text, you can also have an input that is a checkbox. Let's go look at our app.js for a second. And let's use Flexbox to do our header. So let's put a p tag around the my header so we can flex those two items. Yeah, and let's move my header inside. That's right. No, there are no apologies in coding. Yeah, we're not going to include the button because we're going to flex those two things. And yeah, so let's go into index CSS and apply flex to the header. So let's display flex, and let's do justify content. Yeah, let's do space between, see what that looks like. Cool. All right. We might need to deal with that button size. I don't know why that button is stretched out. Yeah, but that should be the margin on the header. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, why let's take a look at that button and see why it got so large. So right click on the button and inspect, or find the item with that. Yeah. Because the header, if we look at the header, so click on the header link in the bottom there. Yeah, click on that. And then on the right hand side, scroll down in those list of styles. Scroll down a little bit more. Scroll up some. Oh no, it's fine. Scroll up a little bit more. Scroll up a little bit more. Just click on the header on the left hand side. Yeah, I think it's just because of how large that text is. Click on the P that's inside of that.
Seems like it's giving it margin.
Yeah. So the margin there, I think, is also being applied. Click on the header again. Okay. No, do not apologize. I don't want to hear sorry again. click on the header. No sorries. Just click on the header on the left hand side in the elements view. You're on the p tag, so click on the header. Cool. And see the margin is there, but why is the
If we scroll down, there was a padding.
Was there a padding? Oh, did I miss it? Yeah, but that's margin and 0. That's margin 0, padding 0. Scroll back up. I don't want to do that. Make this section a little bit bigger. So whoosh. There we go. There we go. So that margin is 0 and padding is 0. Why is that header? Yeah, see that's getting. Let's change the margin to a padding and see if that gives us more what we want. Instead of margin 2 rems, make it padding 2 rems. No, so that button. Yeah, I don't like that. Because what we're doing is we're doing that lump in the carpet thing.
Yeah.
Right? So if we're like, the button's too big, we'll squish the button down, then something else is going to change, right? So we want to figure out, like, why is that thing happening, other than, like, how do we punch it in the face? Yeah, the text is, see how tall the text is? Let's go into the app for a second, app.js, and just get rid of that button for a second. Just delete it and save. And now let's go click on the header in the elements again. You're gonna have to find it. Just use the little thing and just literally click on the word my header. Yep. 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 So what I want you to do, Andrew, is move your mouse up to where it says My Header way up high and click. There we go. That's how we use the finding tool. No apologies. Right. So the margin is there and the P tag is there. And the P tag, see the P tag does the P tag also have, so the P tag also has margin. So let's go do this. Go into the index CSS. And let's just remove all of the margin and padding on all these elements. So let's do a UL. So down below at the very end. So UL, comma LI, comma P. So on all these elements, let's say margin 0 and padding 0. Yeah, so no PX, just 0. Yeah. So when we do a 0, it just wants us to be a 0. It doesn't want a set of units. So now let's put the button back in. Here, you can just undo, Command Z. And there we go. That's what we want to do. Right, we want to find out why is the thing happening rather than just start squishing things around. I know, like, that's my instinct too. I was the same way, like, just make the button the size, right? But then what happens is other things will change, and that's where the, like, pulling on the blinds thing of CSS happens.
So the problem was that the text inside had padding?
The my header had padding, right, which is pushing the height of that, and the button height is an auto. Okay. So the button is going to be as tall as the container. Yeah. Cool. So let's add some checkboxes. So before the to-do, let's put in an input tag. So don't put that space there. So that's a have I see you doing. So Command Z, Command Z, Command Z. So just here, just start typing your input tag without hitting a space. There we go. That's the pattern. Okay. Input. So now inside of the input, inside the input tag, yeah, we're going to say type equals, and instead of quotes, checkbox. Let's save that. There we go. There's our checkbox. So let's put that checkbox on all of them. And one more on the, yep. And one more on the last one. There we go. So get rid of those little spaces React put in for us. Yeah, that's okay. Nope. No worries. Yeah, coding in front of people is, it's nerve-wracking, I know. Cool. Footer looks okay. Right, we could do some styling and coloring, but I don't want to spend a lot of time doing that. You all are really good at figuring out styles and colors and things.
Checkboxes with page buttons.
Well, the checkbox is for completing it, and edit is going to be for changing the text, right?
Can we space between the UL as well? So like, if you're not trying to click on it and there's more space, and like all the edit stuff is on the right hand side versus.
So you want some margin or padding?
No, in between.
Oh yeah. So if we do that, so if we do space in between, we're going to push. We can try it. It's going to push everything away. So in this, probably what we want to do is let's go in and for our UL, let's put some margin. I don't know. Let's put like 1 rem of margin.
If we define margin 0 down there.
Oh, sorry. We want to put that on the LIs, not on the ULs. Yeah, we set. So no, we don't. No. Very carefully. That is zapping out all of the UL and LIs. So let's take 27 and 32 and move it to the very top of the page. So normally, like the things that clear out all your resets, yep, you usually want to put those way at the top. So cut it from there and paste it up. Yeah, probably just below the body. All right. Now let's on an LI on our LIs. Let's put some margin like 1 rem. Let's save it. Cool. Now for all of the buttons that are inside of an LI, so this is going to be now below this LI space button. Let's put some. I don't know. Let's put some left margin. So margin dash left. Margin left. Also 1 rem. Okay, maybe something like that. Right, we can continue to play with it. We can also put, also for all LIs, So do li, instead, just like you did li button, do li input. Let's put some right margin. No, margin right, yeah. Margin right. Let's also do like 1 rem, see what that looks like. Maybe half a rem. Something like that. Right, and we're working our way towards something. So what if we had 2 different kinds of inputs in here? What if we had like a checkbox and we also had some text input? How would we distinguish those? Yeah, we could put class names. Here's another thing you can do. Go back to the app.js. I just want to show you all this. See how we have an input, the type is checkbox, right? And we also might have an input whose type is text. That's our default input style. Go back to the index.css, and after the t in input on line 34, put in open and close brackets, square brackets. Nope, no apologies. Yeah, no more sorries. Sorry about the sorries. And inside the brackets, type equals open quotes checkbox. So we can specify which inputs do we want. So you can use any of the attributes on that tag to identify it. So this would only put right margin on our checkboxes, not on the text input fields, right? You can use this for some really cool things. Have you ever been to a site where every link that goes off-site has a little icon next to it? That's like a, hey, you're going to be leaving our site. An arrow, right? How do they do that? Well, one way you can do it is you can say, take all my A tags who have an href that matches this pattern, put a background image on it. And now every A tag that starts with HTTP : will have that little, you're leaving our site, right? So there's a whole set of expressions you can do on those li inputs that are really cool. And I may share, there's a really good talk where someone goes through like all the different things you can do with styling that like we don't normally talk about, these kinds of things. Cool. That looks pretty good. Let's go back into the app and let's figure out what the first component we're going to extract is. What's the first big component where we think we're going to do some work? Maybe the header. Yeah, I think what's the meatiest thing on this page?
Oh, the list.
Yeah, it's the list.
Oh, yeah.
The list is the meatiest thing, right? The list is where like that's where all the work is going to happen.
So just to clarify, the plus button in the right corner isn't to add a to-do to the existing list, it's to create a new list? Or is it to add an item?
Add an item.
Okay.
Add an item.
Okay.
Yeah. So we can debate where the icons go. I'm gonna roll with what you got. That's maybe where I would have put it.
That's what
I would have maybe put it at the top or the bottom, right? Because it depends on where we're gonna add the things, right? Y'all can take this later and fork the repository, right, and apply your own styling to it. Cool. So let's extract the list into its own component. So the first thing we're gonna do is go create a component. Cool. Yep. And we're going to create a new file. Let's call it, list.js, perfect. That's probably what I would have called it. Let's define a component in here. So do your
What is it? IMRC.
RC, boom. And then let's go to CC list. Cool. And in our render, let's go back to our app and let's grab that UL, take the whole thing and cut it and paste it inside the parentheses here. Sorry, inside of the parentheses here. Paste. Boom. There we go. Now, back on app.js, let's import the list. Perfect. Bam. You guys are rocking this. From list. Right? And then inside of our DOM on line 14, let's just put a list in there. No, so not the UL. This time we're actually just going to put the actual list component. Because the list component is a UL. It's capital list. Nope. Yeah. Yeah. No apologies. Less than tag. Make a tag called list like you were making a tag called UL. Perfect. Right? Because the list is a UL.
Yeah. All right.
And if we save this,
Isn't it self-closing?
it will be self-closing, right? So there's our component, right? So about this is where I would say, hey, let's make a commit because we've got something working. So Andrew, why don't you go ahead and make a commit? Push. And we'll have self it up. Git add dot. Yeah. Git commit. Cool. Matt, you want to go next?
Yes.
Cool. Matt's going to go next. So hopefully you should be able to git pull.
How do I send to you? I don't.
Airplane. So if you click on, if you don't have this little icon in your toolbar, you can get it by going to System Preferences, Displays, Show Mirroring Options in the menu bar. And there you are.
Will it automatically update if you just open Atom and do the tool?
It sure will. Okay, so you have yarn lock, so you've got to git checkout yarn.lock. Oop, you're not in that window.
Yeah, you would recommend that I just follow along.
Yeah. Yeah. Take notes.
We get pull or?
Yes, everybody should now git pull.
Is that correct?
Yep. Now git pull.
I'll make the screen slightly larger.
So you can command plus to make the font bigger, right? So yes. So if you have, I can't pull because of yarn.lock. That's because you did a yarn install and you created your own yarn lock. So now just do like he did, git check out yarn.lock out to throw that file away, and then you can git pull. So now you can code dot and yarn start and all that fun stuff.
I think it did pull this as an error saying that your local changes following files
Yes.
will be written by Nerdy.
And it says yarn lock.
Yeah.
So git check out that file, git check out yarn lock,
Check out dot.
git check out yarn dot, and then you should be able to get pull. So let's make sure, yep, and let's split.
Yeah, what line?
You don't need any dashes, so it's just git space checkout space yarn dot lock. Git space checkout. Git Are you apologizing? Please don't be apologizing. That's one of the. I won't. Since I'm wearing my new cross shirt today, I'll put a little bit of cross. It's like that's one of the number one things that we're. Yeah. Right. I do that a lot. Like I'm sorry, like I didn't have a chance to really like try run this presentation. Here it is anyway. Yeah, sorry, I didn't have this thing.
We're gonna struggle.
That's fine. Okay. So view, go to the top. Just flick your mouse to the top. View. Where is it? No, it's for exiting full screen. Flip this again. Try window. Try the window menu.
Oh, sorry. There we go.
Right. There's usually for view, it'll say exit, stop being full screen, or toggle full screen. Under the view menu, does it say something about, okay, cool, what we don't want to do? So here's what we're going to do. We want to click and hold the green button. Oh, you have Moon installed. That's going to hold that. There, now I get to the So click and hold. Click on the window you want to be on the right hand side, and boom, there we go. We are in good shape. Awesome. Yeah. So the thing the thing I learned was like no apologies, right? You made a choice, you did a thing, like own that and like move forward. Right? That's a super awesome lesson, right? Unless you like offended somebody, right, or hurt somebody's feelings, right? You're not hurting my feelings when you take a long time to type, or you type the wrong thing in the wrong place, so I gotta tell you 6 times what to click on. Like, it's what they pay me to do. Right? That's literally what they pay me for. Cool. So I don't know either. You probably want to put that little Explorer bar back in. So go to View, Appearance, toggle the. Oh, it's tucked away in there.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, why doesn't he have?
If you go into View, there was one that just straight up said Explorer.
Yeah. View.
Explorer. Yeah.
There we go. That's what we want. Right. So let's open up. Where is list.js? How come you don't have list.js?
I did.
Try pulling again. Oh. Hit this refresh. Click on source, and then click on refresh. What? Wait, there's 2 sources
I
here.
see that.
What?
There's a list JS down there.
How is that even? What? I think. What?
Usually.
Honestly, probably have it
So there's
online.
a source, and then there's an STG core.
I think you did code dot in like one parent dot. I think that's what happened. I think we're okay as long as we like focus in this folder.
Even though that's not in
because you
cohort.
made SDG cohort this one.
Yeah, I mean that's the name of the project, but I don't want to have public source and then source again.
That second source isn't even inside.
Oh, so I see
Not
that.
mine.
Whoa.
If you look, that second source is 2 layers in of the same one. So it's unit 2 dash.
Your
Source section.
so
Let's-
you're in SDG.
Let's quit out of code.
Agreed. Close it down. Let's
Go back to your
home.
terminal.
Shut down.
Go back to your terminal. Type ls. Here. Whoa. Whoa. Yeah.
Alright, so 1 up.
No. Type ls space source here. No, just src. ls space src. That's where our list is.
I believe it is
So if you type ls dash l with a space. ls space dash l.
What does that mean?
The long listing, so I can see like what are directories and the timestamps.
No, mine doesn't have extra source.
It does not have an extra SDG Cohort XI1 list. Yeah, that part doesn't matter. What parent folder you're in doesn't matter. What's weird is there's another SDG Cohort 1 list. So type ls space, type SDG, and hit tab. Press enter. See, there's like a whole other copy of the project in there. So let's do this. Yeah, type trash space SDG tab. Yep. Brew install trash. So trash is the same thing as going to Finder and throwing it in the trash can, where RM is like a permanent, there's no coming back from it delete.
When you brew install trash, that installs it globally?
Yes. So I'm in the habit of using trash much. I actually find like, hey, if I try and RM this ama.txt file, my computer will remind me to use trash instead, because I don't want to like ever like. I would have like I can delete that file, and like literally 5 minutes later, no, I need that file.
Oh, trash just moves it to
the trash can.
whereas
Yes.
RS moves.
Removes it without an ability to get it back. So let's trash that folder. Now let's code dot, and let's do the thing. Cool, so let's expand this. And then, oh, you don't have your browser open.
Oh.
No, I think he closed it. So start up yarn. Yeah, cool. Cool. Now, yeah. Now, code is full screen. So you gotta go make code not full screen.
Or you can push up with 3 fingers and drag
Oh,
full screen with that.
yes.
I will
Yeah, this is a great feature. Oh, like this is not how I would have implemented it. Yeah.
It works like that in Mint too.
Yeah. Like people have complained about it since it came out. Okay, cool. So here's our list. Awesome. Let's make the. Let's see. What should we do next? So we've got it hard coded here. If we open up list.js, we've got it hard coded here. Let's figure out how to pull this data from. Let me figure out how to pull this. Yeah, let's do this. I saw you had Postman open for a minute. Let's open Postman. And file, nope, file. Cool. So, awesome. Are you messing around with one list?
I had it pulled open.
You got it. Okay, so cool. With Illustrious Voyage. Okay, so here's our get that gets all of the current to-do lists, right? So some of these are pretty old, right? They're like 2 years old from past cohorts. So let's have our user interface populate from this list rather than our hard-coded. So let's turn our hard-coded list into a dynamic list. So let's just copy this, Command A, and copy. Then let's go into our app, and let's make a state. So we've got to go and make a constructor. So between lines 6 and 7, let's add a constructor of props, super props. We can fix
Yeah,
it.
you're missing the C at the beginning.
And we want to use round braces. Constructor, parens, props, function, super props. Because you're typing still inside of the parentheses. There we go. And we need to open braces for a function and return. Yeah, so here's a tip. Undo. Undo again. Type the open brace and press enter. There we go. Now you can type super props. I kind of wish when you did the open brace it automatically put them on separate lines because that's what we do anyway.
Yeah, take out that super at the bottom.
Yeah, you gotta. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
And you just, yeah, you got, yeah, there we go. Cool. Now, inside of here, after the super props, this.state equals, and paste in what we got. Save. So scroll up, right? So there's a whole bunch of things. Now, we can't just make this state an array. It has to be an object. So let's undo that. Command Z. So let's make the state equal to an object. Curly, enter. Now we gotta give that thing a name. What are we gonna call that? Yeah, but what does it represent? It's an array, so we want it to be plural. To-dos or items. Yeah.
Well, yeah, we did call them list items.
Yeah, so let's say it items, colon, and now we can paste. Let's save. Cool. So that's interesting. Our prettier is not prettifying that. Should it not have prettified that? Yeah, normally it puts like spaces here and other bits. Command Shift P, prettier. Or pretty, P-R-E-T, just do P-R-E-T.
I'm going to put it disabled.
You have it disabled? We probably want to enable. So Command Shift P, extensions. Or it's Command Shift E, and then no, Command Shift B. No, that's not it. I don't know. I don't want to waste any more time. It's fine. Okay, so here's our items, right? We got a whole bunch of individual items that have an ID and a user ID and some text, right, and some status. Let's get our hard-coded list drawn from this. So if we scroll down to the very bottom, which is way on the bottom now, we have our list. This is where our list is, but here is where our items are. So we need to pass our items to our list. So we're going to add a property to list called items, and that's going to be equal to, inside of mustaches, this dot state. So undo that empty line. This dot state dot items. Close. So we're going to pass properties to the list that are the items that come from our state. So we're going to take our big state, and we're going to say the part that's going down to the list is going to be the items. So let's go into our list.
You console log that right there?
Yep. If we console log right before the return, if we console log this dot props dot list, because here we're receiving them as props, items. So the properties are items, right? So the list is the component. We're passing the properties item. We're receiving items, right? So the parent sends properties to the child. Whatever we called it in the parent is what we receive it as the child. And in our console, we have an array of 58 things. There we go. In the parent. So the parent, right? So state flows down as props. So my state, I'm going to take part of my state out and pass it to you as properties. You receive it as properties and I use it. State becomes props. State from a parent becomes properties of children. Properties of parents can also become properties of children, but not the other way around. Right? All thumbs are fingers, not all fingers are thumbs. Right? My state, my entire state can become your entire properties, or part of my state. I can pluck part of my state out and give it to you, my child, as properties. So let's go through and just hard code these to do 1, to do 2, to do 3. Right, so let's turn that into React braces, and inside we're going to say this dot props dot items bracket 0, and then what are we going to pull out of that? Well, so if you hit save too fast, can you undo and undo back to where I just said to do Y1. One more time. There we go. So let's expand this right here. Right where my mouse is for you. Yep.
Yeah, I don't see your mouse.
Oh, you don't see my mouse? Oh, but up here, yeah.
Yeah, that's
So if we say this dot props item 0, let's put the text on the screen. So let's replace to do 1 with mustache brackets React. This dot props dot items 0 dot text, and that dot text goes on the outside, right? So this dot props items is an array. Bracket 0 gives us the first element, and from that we want the item. We want the text. If we save that, we should get walla walla walla. Let's redo that for to do 2 and to do 3. Right. So we're just taking our static HTML. And we're pulling it now from static state. We're not hooked to the API yet. We went to the API and we stole an example of what a full list of items would be like. And now we're turning our hard-coded stuff into still hard-coded, not pulling from the API live, and we're not yet doing mapping. Items to text.
So what we stole from the API was just an array,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not considered JSON.
It is a JSON, but it's a JSON array.
It's a JSON.
It's just an array.
So if we were going to do this, would it be appropriate to make another component called JSON and throw it in there?
Nope, because it's just data. Your components tend to represent the things that are rendered on the screen or management of collections. So we don't have enough yet to like, the data is not complex enough yet to need a component just for the data. So here,
Does that happen at a point?
yep, it sure does. Yeah, you end up getting components whose only purpose is managing data. They have no visual representation. They're only components for managing state. But our apps aren't nearly complex enough.
You got managing the API.
Nope. It's managing your interaction between the user interface and the API. So if this data was really complex, we might have to have a component whose only purpose was to pull things out and format them for other components. So now we have 3 hard-coded LIs, right? Let's let's make this dynamic. Right, let's turn this into a mapping. So I want to show you another way of doing this. Let's make a new method above render. And let's call this method, put up one more space. Let's call this method render item, render capital I item. And it's going to take as an argument, so it's equal to, takes an item as an argument, and it's an arrow function, and it's going to return, open and close parentheses, enter inside, no, enter inside the parentheses. And now copy and paste one of your LIs in there from down below. Now, instead of this.props.item0, replace that with item. So just list.props.items bracket 0. Just that part. So from the T, so this.props.items bracket 0, that text, please replace that with the word item. Now save this. So now we have a function whose responsibility is for rendering one item. Now down below where you have that first LI, so delete lines 19 through 23. And in its place, put mustache brackets react. Oh, sorry, yeah. Render this.render item, lowercase tim. Yeah. And pass in it as arguments this.props.items 0. Save. Yep. Hey, nothing's changed. Now replace the other 2 LIs with the same thing. Get rid of that entire LI, so delete lines 20 through 24, and use this.render item, this.props.items 1. To see what I'm doing, I'm trying to get down to the part where I just have something that looks like a thing we might be able to map through. Now put another one for items 2. Starting to look like something we could iterate through, right? So now in front of these, so between lines 18 and 19, let's put a mustache bracket, a new line and a mustache bracket. This.props.items.map, open parens, item, arrow function, inside the parentheses, arrow function, return this.render item parentheses, item. Save. Right? Now we are rendering all the items. Right? This is the slow steps, step by step. Slow steps, step by step. So it's complaining that we need a key. So we're going to put it up there in the LI. Up in the LI. Nope, in the LI.
Oh, yeah.
In the LI itself. We need a key equal to. Now we got to look at the item. Don't save yet. Expand this 58 list of things over in your console.
So it should be 58 things
50.
long.
Yeah, it is 58 things long. So what can we use as a unique identifier?
ID.
So let's make our key equal to no arrow.
That was the closing tag for the.
Oh, yes, sorry. Yeah, and inside of mustache brackets, ID, item.id. So there's our unique item. Save. Mm-hmm.
And so the purpose of the key is just to point to one specific item.
Yeah, so React wants to know when it re-renders. It tries to re-render as little as possible. And the way it knows if this is the same item as before is by its key.
Oh, so if you don't have the key, then it has to re-render the whole thing.
Yeah, so delete everything and
I
re-render
see.
it.
Okay.
So when we have a key, React can be very smart. It's smart enough that it can just replace part of the DOM. Like, oh, this is the same item, but all you changed was the text. I'm just going to change that part. So by giving it a key, we make React as efficient as possible. So let's get rid of the 24 through 26 lines, because that's redundant. Right? Cool. Let's save this. Right? Now we should be able to scroll in there and see about 58 different items, right? Yep. Cool. So I think we also wanted to say the ones that were complete, we wanted them to be struck through. So let's do that. Let's go back into the console to look at our data. So what else do we have here in the data? If we go into the console and expand our array of 58, we have a complete. That's true and false, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any in here that are true? Scroll down and see if you find some that are true. Maybe. Literally none of them are true. Boo. Okay. Let's go look at the one. Let's go look at the one list API. So if you bring up the documentation in Chrome, just one-list. There we go. So how do we update an item? So click on this icon. There we go. So if we put items ID token and we give it an ID, we can also in the request show. We can change this. So let's go back into Postman. Let's pick one item to complete, at least. So you can change this get to a put, and then change the URL after items. I think we have to put slash in the ID. So before the slash, I don't know. Let's do ID 7. 7. Let's go back to the documentation and see what we have to do. And then copy that little body. Yeah, that little body. Copy that. And now in the body down here, params. Yeah, maybe in params. No. Click on. How do we do the body? Go back up. Oh, body, right, that body right here. Authorization headers body. Authorization headers body. Authorization headers body. Click on raw. Nope, sorry, click on raw. Raw. And then paste in here. And change the over here this text to JSON. Right, so this is how we use that API. We got to get the type right, we have to get the URL right, and we've got to give it a body. So if we do this and send it, cool. I think we changed that. Yep, we updated it just now. So if you go back to your app and reload your app, we should see that one in the log So let's look at the, nope, let's look at the data. Where's ID 7? False. What? Go to Postman. Scroll back up to where the body is. Complete is true. Items. Let's make sure we did the. Let's make sure we did the
You're not actually
API, right?
calling the API, you're calling the JSON file.
No, oh, you're right. We're not going to the API yet.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Thank you.
That's
This
what
is even easier. I was ahead of ourselves.
That's what
Call me out. Scroll back. You did. Did I hear you?
just go there and change it to true.
We were already going to the API. My bad.
Small steps.
Small steps. Yeah, I got to break the problem down. Awesome. Let's expand the 58.
That should work.
Now we should have this right. Cool. Well, at least we saw how to make something updated in the API.
Yeah.
Complete is true. So let's style this based on that completion status. So back in the list. Yep. Let's add a class to the LI. So here's what we're going to do. Before the return, let's say let class name equal to blank. Then on a new line, if item in parentheses, item inside of parentheses, nope, yep, item dot completed, and then our then part of our so finish the if and open some parentheses. Let's say, oops, no, we're still inside of the parentheses, so we wanted to put those after the parentheses. Here we're going to say name equals completed. No, not comparison, assigning.
So class
Equals. Yeah, just a regular equals string completed.
Why is it?
What did we call the? Oh, I called it complete. Yeah, we can call it complete. That's fine. The completed here should be complete.
That's what I was wondering. Is it
Yeah, that's the same as the data. And I usually try and make class name be the same thing. Cool. So let's save this. I don't know why your prettier's not working. It's bothering me. I don't know why.
That's why I turned off because it wasn't doing anything. I was just adding things that I didn't want.
Prettier should not be ever adding anything.
Like it was adding yeah, semicolon.
Oh yeah. That's just formatting. Okay, we'll figure out your prettier later. So here's our here now we're computing a class name. Now let's go use that in our LI. So we're saying if the item is complete, let's make the class name complete. So inside of here, next to the key, say class name equals, and then inside of mustache brackets, class name. Class name. Cool. Save this. So now what we can do is in our CSS. Oh, do we not? So now in our CSS, so a quick way, hide the sidebar, Command P, index.css. So I don't have to keep bringing the sidebar back and back. What? No. What? Command P, close that. Command P, index.css. There we go. That was weird. So somewhere down the bottom, let's add a class dot complete. Oh, so dot complete. We're going to define a class dot complete. And let's do, is it text decoration strike through? Text decoration line through? Yeah, it's the very first one. Decoration, colon, line through. There we go. Hey! So now if we have something completed, we get that.
It needs to be a red line.
Cool, then say, yeah, color red. Yeah. We're going to tie that to the check mark in a second. Is there?
I think maybe.
Cool. Let's see. Text decoration color. There we go. That's awesome. Red. Fire brick.
Yes.
Nice.
Now,
Very nice. Okay, cool.
Just make it
If
minor.
this is coming true.
Cool. Okay, so let's go back to our list, and let's also have the checkbox be checked.
Oh, so you're actually going to use. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Use the
So-
checkbox to toggle complete.
Yes. Is that what we were?
Which is what we want.
Yep. So let's make another variable as a sibling of class name. So at the same level as class name. Well, not right next to it, but like another paragraph of code. With a blank space, please. Yep, there we go. Let check equal to. Let's do checked checked equal to blank string. Then if item complete, just like above. We're basically following the pattern above. So we're saying if the item is complete, let's set the class name. Now we're going to say if the item is complete, let's set checked equal to the word checked. In quotes. Checked is checked. Oop. That's fine. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use this to set the checked property on our input. So now on the input, in addition to type equals checkbox, let's add another property, checked equal to interpolation checked. Right? So if the item is complete, that will be the word checked. If it's not complete, it won't be the word checked, and the input won't be checked.
I see.
Right? So if the item is complete, then the variable checked will be the word checked, which is what the property checked is hoping it will be to show that it's checked. Check, 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 check.
Okay. So now we're
Right.
going to have to figure out ways to.
Modify this. Yep.
I'm getting ahead.
Yep. So cool. Now we can toggle something on and off. Right? So now I think it's time to hook this up to the API. Right? We have the next thing we should probably do is put a click on that checkbox and have it do a thing.
Yeah.
But before we do that, let's not try and manage our own state. Right? We have an API that does that. So now it's time to connect to the API. So why don't we have you add complete and push? We'll have somebody else pick up. I think Carson was next.
Hey guys, where's Carson go?
Yeah. Nope. That's not the right thing. So save the. Nope. Don't. Yeah. Don't save this file. So go back into your sidebar. Get back to your non-extension sidebar. I don't know. Command Shift E, I think it was. But now there was that little thin line of icons, whatever that thing is called. Go to View. No. Oh, you disconnected. We lost you. We lost you for some reason. So no, it's called the sidebar. No, the sidebar is the palette. Try the sidebar. Okay, cool. Let's try that. Go to View. Where is it? And- so what's the? Nope. That's that. Nobody knows what it is. View. Go back to View. View. Appearance. It's one of these here. No, it's this.
Activity bar. Show activity bar.
Is that what it is? Cool.
View,
Yes.
appearance. Show
Activity bar. There it is. And apparently, there's no hotkey for it. Great. So click on the Git icon, and then I think you can just click on this checkbox and type in a commit message. Let's say, Yeah, driving or list works with static state. Boom. Now you have to get push. You have to control C down there first because you're actively running the arm. So now you can get push. Cool. So if you disconnect from me and Carson connects to me and gets his environment set up after he gets pulls, use trash. 15,000?
Yeah, in package lock.json.
Oh, okay. That's the file of all of the packages we have installed. So let's get yarn. Let's do get pull and yarn start, and let's get your side by side going. All that fun stuff. Okay. So now we're gonna connect this to a live API.
Does it need to do the Axios support?
We're gonna do that just in a minute. So we want to replace this hard-coded state with driving it from API. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to replace this array with an empty array. So we're going to grab that entire array from the bracket to the bracket. Yep, all of that all the way down to the end bracket. All the way down. All 58 items, and delete them. And let's just make sure our app still works. So save. Cool. Our app still works, but there's nothing there. Perfect. So now what we're going to do is let's add a method. So after your constructor, but before your render. So after the constructor, but before the render. So between lines 14 and 15 is where we're going to be adding code. Between 14 and 15 is where we're going to be adding code. We're going to make a method called get items from API. So get capital get, G-E-T, get, so functions always start with a little. So the functions always start with a lower, and then we capitalize the beginning of every other word. So get, capital I, items, capital F from, capital A, API. It's going to be equal to an arrow function. So we got to do equals, open and close parentheses. So get rid of that. Nope. So we got to back two deletes. One more delete. Equal to parentheses for a function. Now an arrow. Outside. Arrow. Then finish the arrow. Now open and close mustache. This is the definition. This is an arrow function that takes no arguments, right? This is, if you're not yet comfortable typing this is a thing to practice as well. Like, I know it seems really ridiculous, like Homer Simpson go to the board, right at the beginning of Simpsons, I will not, put gum on the chair. Like, type it out 50 times. Go home while you're watching TV, open up a new editor window and just like type out this 50 times. Because like just getting your fingers to be able to do it automatically, it will become a muscle memory and it'll be fine. So inside of here, we want to get, it's iTeams. So there's no, so get rid of the A. Items, there we go. Get items from API. So now we're at the point where we need to write the code that gets something from the API. So this is where we're going to add, Axios to our app. All right, so now we're going to add the Axios library to our app. So back in your terminal, just Command Tab. One more. Cool. So now make a Command T will make a new tab. Cool. So now in here we can yarn add Axios. Mm-hmm. But it will pull down that we added project. So now if you go back to our code, Command Tab again to go back to code.
You have to install Axios to different apps that you use.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You're gonna be adding a lot of libraries soon. You're gonna be adding all kinds of stuff to your apps. So at the very top, we're gonna import Axios from Axios. Import Axios. No, it's all lower. This is gonna be lower. Axios from quote Axios.
I thought we installed Axios globally.
No. So these kinds of libraries are local to your project. Things like Yarn that you use from the command line, you install globally. So you're going to install Axios, because not every one of your projects is going to use Axios, so you wouldn't install it globally. So put a blank line after 5 but before 6. So that kind of separate our imports from our class. Cool. Now inside of here, inside of our get items from API, we're going to use Axios. So indent it in a little bit. Tab. There we go. Axios.get. And now parentheses and a quote. We're going to paste in the API we've been using. So, Matt, you have that up in your Postman. Will you copy and paste that into Slack for us?
Which part of it?
Just the URL for your. Well, it was really the one for your. But yeah, you just copy and paste that whole URL in there, and get rid of the /7 for us. So Matt's going to give us the URL where the API comes from. He's connecting. He's going to get it from where we were playing inside of Postman.
Yeah, you know what experience is so small on my side.
You can like drag and make it a little bigger.
Yeah, but you come up here to the where you're casting, and click on that icon, and go to open this. So right here where it says go to open display preferences. Right. So don't do Gavin's laptop. Click on this one that's behind. That's your laptop, and say optimize for. The drop down that says optimize for. Say your built-in display. Don't change that. Change that to built-in display. Is that better? There we go. Cool. So grab that URL, copy that, and come back to your Atom editor, so your code editor, and paste the URL. Here we go. So that's our URL, and at the end of that, parentheses, we're going to say .then, open and close parentheses. Now just put an enter because it's super long. We're going to say response arrow. You've got a typo in there. Oh, no you don't. Sorry, RESPONs, yeah. Arrow, space arrow. So equal to, greater than. And a function, so open and close braces. Cool. Inside of here, let's just console.log response.data. Response.data. Cool. So save that. So this is our function that can get data from the API. But we're probably not going to have anything yet. So if you go to console down below, scroll up, right? Nothing's happening because we're not calling it yet. So we want to get items from the API when our component first arrives on screen. So this is another function, component did mount. So another sibling of those. So between lines 22 and 23, let's add another function. What's that? No. No. So let's do component did mount.
That's for post, like the big loading.
Yeah, so this is after this component has appeared on screen, this is what we're going to do. So we're going to make this a function. component did mount. So let's make this a function equal to. So equal to open and close parentheses arrow braces. Oh, P-O-N-E-N-T. Component did mount. Cool. Then an arrow afterwards, and an opening. So we're doing it just like line 16. So line 16 is your template. Yeah. So inside of here, let's call the function that's going to get the data from the API. So we have to say this dot. So hey, on this object, let's call get items from API. I think you can just hit tab to finish that. Look at that. Why type when it can do it for you? What's that? And we've got to call the function with open and close brackets. Sorry, open and close parentheses. At the very end. So this dot get items from API is the function. Parentheses says do it. So let's save this. And now we should see some stuff pop up on the screen. Boom. So now we're getting those 58 items, right? That is what we have to set our state to. So now after the console log, this dot set state, open parentheses. Nope, so yep, so delete that dot, open and close parentheses, and inside of there, open and close braces. What we got back from the API is our items. So it's items colon response.data. Response.data. Right? So we just got back from the API an array of things. That's where we said to put it in response data. If we save this, hey, that stuff is coming to us from the API now.
And we did change it.
We did change it with Postman, right? So if Matt goes in and changes another one, if you still have your Postman open, go in and change another item to be complete. So go back and change that 7 to, I don't know, one we're not aware of.
21.
Here we go.
I didn't use 21.
Did you fire up another one? Cool. Let's reload our interface. Let's reload our web page.
What is the data?
Boom. What is what?
What is data?
Response.data is the data that comes back from the API. So we can ask for the response code, we can ask for the response headers, we can also ask for the response data. Nope. Data comes from Axios. What's inside of data is the data that comes back from the API. So Axios is giving us a response object. On that response object is a data. That's what the API is returning to us. Cool. So now we have it reflecting from the API. Let's see if we can have the check click and send the request to check something off of the API. Right? So now what we need to do is handle the click. So if we go to our list component, let's find our input checkbox. Input type equals checkbox, right? And inside of there, what we need is a on change. On change equals to, it's not a click, it's on change because we're changing the input, equals to, and inside of mustache brackets, this dot, and what we're going to call this function. Yeah, that's something that represents what it does, like complete an item. Let's call it complete item. Complete capital and then capital I item. And no parentheses here. So now, as a sibling of this function, so scroll your page left so we can see the rest, the other way. There we go. So as a sibling to render item and render, let's make a function called complete item. No, a sibling to it. So between lines 23 and 24, we're going to define a new method. Render item. Sorry, complete item. Complete item. So complete item is going to be a function that takes one argument. So equals first. Complete item equals an argument, so parentheses. It's going to take event inside. inside of the, yeah, so event is going to be the argument. Nope. So event goes there.
Oh, gotcha.
Inside that event, outside of this arrow, then open and close the brackets. Cool. Console.log some message inside of a string. Hooray. Item completed inside of a string. So the parentheses were correct. And now inside of a string, say completed. So let's save this and let's try checking on a few things. Okay, right? So we're getting it completed, but it's not changing state. So here's what we need now, is now we need a function in our app that we pass down to our list that tells us what's been checked. So let's define another function as a sibling to get items from API. And let's call it a complete item. Let's call it the same thing. So complete item is going to be a function. And we don't yet know what it's going to take, so let's leave that blank for the moment. Then we're going to arrow and open a function. And now press return. Let's indent this correctly. So grab those 3 lines and then tab them over. And your prettier is not set up to work either. That's really weird. So you're too far indented. Right, so all these functions are siblings. They should appear on the same column. They should appear on the same column. Why do I critique the code? I can guarantee you every employer that you go to, one of their devs is going to troll your GitHub. I guarantee it, because that's what I do. And I'm looking at your code, I'm looking at your formatting, I'm looking at your spelling, I'm looking at the tidiness of your code, because that's going to tell me the tidiness of you as a developer. So if I see randomly indented code, if I see things that aren't spaced, right, like how much does this person care about their code? So this is why, like, I want you to be running prettier, I want you to be indenting code, I want things to align, because like it conveys that you are a developer that like cares about the care and feeding of your code. So it sounds like I'm harping on you all, but I'm doing it for a reason.
Thank you.
So here what we want to do is we want to now use the API to check something off. So if we look at the API docs, we know that this is a put. So we can copy that Axios get line above. So we can copy lines 17 through 22 and put that in our, one more. Yeah, we can copy that and put it here in our complete item. And we can change that get to a put. Right? And then we know that the items has to have the ID. So we need to pass in the ID so we know which item we're completing. Right? If we bring up the documentation in your browser, so open a new tab in Chrome. In your editor, in your browser on the right, open a new tab, please. Command T. And then, oh, you can't type a what?
Yeah,
That's weird. Yeah, just go into Slack and click on it. Although I think where we can change an item. There it is. A parameter called ID. So on line 24, inside of the parentheses, we're going to add an argument called ID. ID. We're going to change our string from a regular string to a backtick string. So change the string on line 25. Instead of being a double-quoted string, make it a backtick string. Interpolated, yep. So backtick, and at the very end, backtick. Cool. Then after items, just like here, how we've got slash, so put another slash right here after items, slash, and now we're going to use plain old JavaScript interpolation, $, brackets, ID, and close that bracket. Cool. But we notice we also have to provide a body. So at the very end of the string, but inside of the parentheses, all the way to the end, right here, after the string, so one more character to the right, comma, just press enter. Yep. Let's open and close an object. So open and close a mustache bracket and press enter. So inside of this, we're going to put this items part right here. So just this items, just that item, including the string. All the way 2 more lines down, that. Cool, copy that. So this is the body we're passing it. Save that, and then let's unindent it 2 times. So copy line highlights 27 to 29, and shift tab it. Please, anybody who does not have Prettier working in their code, you must see me today to make it work. Do not leave school today without Prettier working. Please, 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 please.
I want to go back and
So you want to indent line 27 1 time, please. So click somewhere on 27 and hit tab. Now go down to line 28 and hit tab. Cool. So now if we call complete item and we pass in an ID, we should be finishing that. And then when we're done with the API, let's look at what the response looks like.
If you go to view in the Chrome, it always shows, put that on and off.
click off it.
Yeah, click off and then click it back on.
That's weird.
You're welcome.
Cool. That's weird that it did not show that to you. So now what we need to do is we need to look at the API documentation still. We need to be back on the API docs, please. So let's look at what this returns. It says it just returns a 204. So after we're done, it does not return us any good information that we can use. So in the then part, rather than console log data set state, let's call get items from API. So we're going to get rid of that, and we're going to get rid of set state. The whole thing. The whole thing. Get rid of the line's gone. When we're done, let's ask for the items again. This.get items from API. Get items from API. Get capital I, yeah, there we go, and call it with open and close parentheses. So after we're done telling the API we've checked this off, we're going to ask the API again to give us the entire list. So we're telling the API, this one's complete. We get something back, cool. Then we ask for the entire list again, and we refresh our state. Question?
If we want to unclick it so that you can follow it.
We're going to get there.
Okay.
We're going to get there. Yep, we got it. So now we have to use this function. So let's go back to our list. Oh yeah, we did not save it. So the blue circle, yeah. So in our list, right, in our function complete item, now we need to call the function, right? We can get rid of the console log, but we can't call the function yet because we have to pass it first, right? We have to pass it from the app. The function has to be passed from the app to the list so it's able to be called. So back in our app for a second, where we map our list, so we go down, somewhere we have our list, items equal, oh, sorry, no, yeah, so down where the list is, down where the, down, line 46, that's where we need to pass the function. So the app owns the function, we have to pass it to the list. Right, the list doesn't know what to call yet until we tell it. So in addition to the items, let's also pass it complete item. So as a sibling to this, before or after, before or after, we're going to say complete items equal, nope, yeah, just space, one space. And then complete item equals, and then inside of mustache brackets, this dot complete item. So now we're telling the component, not only do you have all of the items, but you also have this function called complete item. And if you call me and provide me an ID, I will check that item off. So we have to pass that function down. So the state lives in the app. The functions that manage the state live in the app. We pass those functions down as props so we can call them back up.
Can you explain what this.state.items does now that we're using the actual API?
It does the same thing it did before. Rather than it being a hard-coded array, that hard-coded array is coming dynamically from the API. Nothing changed. This.state.items used to be that array with all that hard-coded crap in it. You notice how we got rid of it and it was empty? Then we fetch it from the API and we set it. So rather than us having copied and pasted it, now every time, if you scroll up, Carson, to here, right, on line 20, we are changing the state to the items being the response from the API. So before, the items was an array of hard-coded values. We got rid of the hard-coded values. And now when we ask the API, hey, give me all of the items, I set that to my items. Everything else flows as it was, right? Because I don't want to have to change it once I fetch from the API. Nothing else in my program should change. The fact that I'm going from a hard-coded list to one that comes from the API should mean no difference to your program. If we start from the beginning and we flow this process, this is the same process we've done several times now, right? Nothing else in the program changed. We were passing the this.state items, which was our hard-coded list. Now we're passing this.state.items that gets populated by the API.
Are the items properties actually changing in the API?
No. When we post it, the items in the database are changing, and we ask for the list again, it will be a different list. Right? So now not only are we getting something from an API, we're putting something to the API. Just like when you marked a square in Minesweeper.
So
Same
now
thing.
those that we changed to true are going to be...
We got to do one more thing to get there, but yes, they'll in the database they'll be changed. Got to do one more thing. So if you go back to the list, now all we have to do is call this, right? So we have to say this dot complete item parentheses, and we have to give it the ID. So we have to figure out where this ID is going to come from, right? So where did we call complete? It's up above, right? But we don't know which item this is, right? So we've got a little bit of an issue because all we have is the event. We don't have the actual item. So this is some feedback coming from React, like, oh shoot, I can't get at the item. It means that, can you scroll your page, we can see all, yeah, there we go. It means that we're missing another component. It means that our LI itself, it should be a component that manages its own information, right? Because the list is really a bunch of items, so it means that we need an item component. So that refactoring is probably going to take us about 10 minutes. We're going to finish this at 2. Do you want to do this now to see this work, or do you want to live with the suspense until 2 o'clock? Go? Okay.
Yeah,
let's go. So let's make a new component. So let's make a new file. And let's call it item, capital I, item.js. And inside of here, let's do our little shortcut for importing React. Cool, and let's do our shortcut for creating a component. And let's call it item. Cool, let's save this. Let's go back to list. Yeah, let's grab that LI. So grab lines 17 through 21 and copy it. And then go over to item.js and paste it inside the parentheses there. Cool. And then put a blank line after the parentheses but before the li. So right where your cursor is, yeah, put a blank line there. No, a whole blank line. Cool. And then put one after the li but before the closing parentheses. So let's change item to this.props. So everywhere you see item, change that to this.props. So everywhere in this file where you see the word item, please change that to say this.props. Because rather than us having the item, we're going to be passed the props. So there's a couple places where item appears. This.props. Cool.
Why don't you use a constructor?
Because we only need a constructor if you're managing state. We're not managing state here. So the default thing puts a state equals to. We could actually get rid of that line. You could delete line 4 if you wanted to. Cool. Let's save this. Let's go back to list.js. Let's delete that li. And now let's a new tag less than item. So let's make a tag called item, like you're making an li, but have it called capital I item. Cool. Yes, but we're going to add a few things inside. So let's pass the ID. So inside of the item bracket. So inside of the item bracket, ID equals braces item.id. Item.id. Right. And let's also pass it, so close that brace. And let's also pass it the text. So text equals something's not right. You use round parentheses, not braces. Item, nope, mustache. Item.id. Close mustache. Now another property, text, nope, space. Text equals new property, so parentheses, yep, item.text. I think those are the two things that we wanted, right? Oh, and we also need complete. So complete equals, same pattern, item.complete. Typo. So if you notice, like one of the ways I type real fast is I look at that autocomplete thing and I will use the living daylights out of it. So if I type COM tab, but put it at the end of line 17. Oh, you all need prettier so bad.
Why do you say you all? This is
No, you all need it. Cool.
What do you mean, you?
Okay, so now we gotta move some things around. So we've got to grab lines 7 through 15 and delete it from here. And go to item.js and put it between lines 3 and 4. No, sorry, between lines 4 and 5. Okay, and change item.complete to this.props.complete. So change the word item to this.props.
Also, if you highlight item real quick.
I wouldn't do that because
No, and then hit Command D, it'll select the next one.
Yep. This.props. Right, because we're getting our properties now. Cool. Let's save this. Now let's go back to list.js. Cool. Let's take the complete item function and let's move that let's move that whole thing. So 13 through 15 delete. And let's put that in item.js. Right? So between lines 3 and 4. Between 3 and 4. Paste. Cool. So now we have to pass complete item one more time down, right? So complete item comes from app to the list. Now it has to go from the list to the item. So we go back to the list.js. We also have to pass on line 9 one more attribute. We have to pass one more attribute. So after the complete, at the very end there, but inside of the arrow, we have to say complete item equals this dot complete item inside of mustaches. Nope, so just the this dot is inside of the mustaches. You can also like arrow down and tab. Like if you see a completion below, you can like arrow down to it and use it. Yep. Cool. Let's save this and scroll so I can see the beginning of the code. Cool.
no, this
Now our list is just this. So our list is just rendering the items. Cool. So let's go into items.js. Now finally here in on line 5, finally we can say this.props.id. So we have to pass that function from the app to the list and from the list to the item. Let's see if we have errors in our app. We probably do. Yeah. So let's scroll up. So in list.js on line 12, we've got a problem. Let's go figure that out. Yeah, we have a close tag. Can you get rid of the sidebar so we have more space for code? Bring line 10. Oh, we're missing a closed parentheses. Cool. We're missing a close after the closing item. We're missing a closing parentheses. Cool. Save that. So now we have to import item from item. At the very top, on line 2.
We import that on list.
We have to import it in the list. Yep. Import item from item. Quotes, / item. And we don't need the JS. Save that. Cool. Let's see if we can click on something.
Why didn't you want to do all that?
Because I can't, because I don't have the reference of the ID.
I clicked on something.
No, you clicked on something. Okay, so we end up with, so if you go back to item.js, it's this.props.complete item on line 5. So line 5 currently says this, no, that was right.
Oh, that was.
So it currently says this.complete item. Complete item is on our props. So it's this.props.complete item.
This gets easier.
Yes.
Okay.
So click on something. This.props. Oh, it's this.props is not a function. So let's go back and look at our list. Scroll to the end of item. Complete item equals this.complete item. Oh, this.props.complete item. Right. The thing we're figuring out here is now when we have something that's a little more complicated, we're managing state at the app. We have to pass the functions that are in the app down to the list. But since it's the item that controls its own check state, we have to pass the function one more level down. So you'll find in React applications, you take your functions that are in your app, and you pass them down, 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 8 levels down, and then you call back up.
Right. And that's what we have to do with this.props, that we do that amongst each one.
Well, because we're passing that function down, and then down, and then down, right, and then calling back up. Later on, we're going to learn some libraries that help make that better. So quite always you're learning like the low-level, nitty-gritty, hard way of doing things. And then we're going to show you an easier but still hard way of doing it. So can we check some more things off? I think we're...
Yeah.
Cool. So like check off gotta get groceries. Cool. So you notice that like it takes a second for it to go to the API and check something off. When we come back from lunch, let's figure out how to uncheck something. We're going to find unchecking something now much easier now that we have checking something. And we're going to find deleting something much easier now that we're deleting something. We may skip then over edit, because edit's going to be a little bit of a challenge. And then we'll go to add. When we come back, we'll wrap up with add. We'll wrap up with edit. Cool? Why don't you add and commit and push that first then? Thank you.